Well, it's that time again. Hello viewers and welcome once again to another race here in Fair Play Racing League. Tonight it's a social race around the Jeddah Corniche circuit, with the majority of the field tonight filled by our Tier 3 drivers, with a sprinkling of Tier 2 drivers as well, to add a little bit of a mix to the grid this evening. F120 for a little over a week now, and while we are still a couple of weeks away from the start of our 4th season, some drivers will have already been putting in hours of practice in order to try and steal a march on the rest of the field. The question is, tonight, will we see any of that practice pay off for the drivers who have chose to put in the hard work? Tricky circuit this one, and we might see a few drivers caught out tonight by its unique characteristics. Very high speed corners, of course. It is our standard format tonight, and for the rest of the socials that we have going on this week, we'll be live again tomorrow and Friday before a switch to our sprint format next week on the same days. It is the first race I've had the pleasure of commentating on with this new game, and hopefully the first of many once again this season with my regular co-commentator TJM 1992. TJ, glad to be back in the commentary box with you as always. And I suppose the big question I have for you really is, what about this new game do the drivers have to be most cautious about, especially around this circuit?
Yep, pleasure joining the comms box again, Biddle. It's been we've had a nice break, and they get stuck in for the pre-season season 4. So drivers for this game around this track. My experience says that anyone that's running medium traction or no traction, the car is very loose in the rear end, and it's all about that throttle control. You put the throttle down a bit too much through a corner, and you risk spinning the back end and doing a 180 or 360 into a wall here.
Definitely. I think that is the big talking point, isn't it? It is that traction that is the difference this season. We might see a few drivers then taking advantage of perhaps... We know there's a bit of a difference between the assists at the moment, with the people with the full traction perhaps not getting enough respect thrown on their name in doing so. But you might see a little bit of an advantage from the drivers that do choose to run a little bit of extra assists, at least for the early part of the season anyway, unless they're looking to change it up later on. We have got 17 cars in the field tonight. As I mentioned, it is mostly Tier 3 drivers that we have got in the field this evening. There is a few Tier 2 names you'll see in there, but of course ahead of Season 4 we've had a little bit of a shuffle with the tiering based on the results and of course the championship last season. So a few Tier 1 names like Revengezilla and LWS Yorkie find themselves in the field tonight. Dean as well in the field as well, TJ. So up against the competition, of course, these Tier 3 drivers, do you think that they're going to excel here, or do you think we're going to see some Tier 3 drivers perhaps excel against those above them?
I'd like to see some of the Tier 3 drivers excel. You've got the likes of Spenio and Magsy, who had fantastic ends this season for Season 3. Also, Tadas as well, he's back in the field today. So don't commentate these Tier 3 drivers as well. And you've got the likes of Cruz, who's dropped down from Tier 2 to Tier 3, showed some pace last season. So hopefully some of these drivers can excel tonight and show some true pace, and you never know, they might get moved up to Tier 2 for doing it.
Yep, of course, we are still a couple of weeks away, as I mentioned, from Season 4, so there is always time for late changes in the pack anyway. David Lawface crosses the line and a 132.7 from him, the opening lap. Scotsman with a 132.2, and Dean blows them all away in that Red Bull with a 129.4, then just under 3 seconds, I should say, faster than Scotsman. Currently in P2, we have lost a couple of cars already, actually, TJ. As you were speaking then, we saw in the background the Williams of Revengezilla into the wall then on his first flying lap, so he'll be taking no further part in qualifying, of course. And with 17 drivers currently out on track, losing 2 means that all the drivers have to do now is put a time in, of course. We are running the 3-session qualifying this week, as I mentioned, so we will only take 15 through to the second part of qualifying, and as it stands there is only 15 drivers still in qualifying, so all they have to do is put a time on the board. Is it a surprise there to see with Revengezilla? We saw him in the wall, as I mentioned, I think it was midway through Sector 2. I didn't see what happened to Pines either. Didn't know if that was on the time on track or in the pit lane. But yeah, that's a surprise to me. I don't know about you, TJ.
Yeah, it is a surprise. So Pines did lose it coming out the final corner, and it looked like he was trying to get going on his fastest lap, and it looks like he's put traction down he's fought down too much. Yeah, it is a surprise to see both the T2 drivers out so early in Q1, and it just goes to prove the point right at the beginning where we mentioned about the throttle control and the traction. That even the best drivers in the league are struggling with it, and unfortunately, the two T2 drivers have found out the hard way.
Yeah, there is, of course, as I mentioned, a few weeks and a few races we've got planned for the drivers to hone their skills still ahead of the new season. As we see Adrian come up and across the line now to put the fastest time on the board, a 129.2 then from that particular Williams, where his teammate failed. He has definitely succeeded so far with the fastest time of the session then. Got LWS Yorkie out the final corner, he's invalidated. It's something I've noticed actually in this early part of qualifying. Drivers are struggling with invalidation, and I know you can ride the curves a little bit more on this game. Do you think that's what drivers are doing, perhaps pushing the track limits a little bit too much?
Yeah, I think so. I think people are still trying to test the waters on track limits. They are definitely better on this game compared to last. I think drivers are still just learning where they are. This will be the first one for most drivers on Jeddah, to be honest, so that perhaps they are just trying to push the boundary a little bit, perhaps trying to expose some of the track limits that weren't necessarily there in the last game. But no doubt these drivers will learn pretty quick, and hopefully they'll put a time on the board.
Yeah, we've just seen one driver put a time on the board. It was Tadas who moves into P4 then for Red Bull. Red Bull 2 and 4 at the moment. Then they might be separated in terms of times, but not separated at the moment in terms of positions. Then we're back on board with LWS Yorkie then in the Alpine, then coming through Sector 2 now. He's kept it clean so far. I know he's struggled to keep a valid lap on the board the past couple of goes rounds, and will he manage to finish this lap? Looks like he's being a bit tentative this time, and of course, as I mentioned, all the drivers need to do is get that time on the board to get them through into the second part without crashing out and joining Pines and Revengezilla, who will take no further part in qualifying. Then I know they've changed this last corner now, a little bit tighter on the exit. I don't know if that's to hamper Max Verstappen even more after his mishap in 2021, but there we go, across the line now, LWS Yorkie 130.6, not the fastest time in the world, but it didn't need to be, but it's still good enough for P4 then.
Yeah, great lap from the T2 driver. Fantastic, and yeah, as you say, you took a bit tentative going around the lap. I am on board with Cruiser currently, who's had a fantastic Sector 2, kept it nice and clean, coming down to the final corner now. It is really giving it some here, so we'll see what the Haas driver can do. Takes the final corner very nicely, kisses the wall by the looks up from the camera angle, DRS wide open, and he crosses the line. 131.7, not the fastest lap in the world again, but enough to gain through to Q2.
Yep, time on the board, that is what counts then. Magsy right behind him managed to set a 130.6 and to go P5 for Alfa Romeo, and just before Cruz across the line we saw Panic End put a time on the board that was 1.2 seconds quicker than his opening effort then, and into 8th place provisionally at the moment. Then there is 3 drivers still yet to set a time. Fishsticks is one of those, and Fishsticks is about to put a time on the board. Let's see the new Tier 3 driver, it should be said, where he can put that AlphaTauri, and it is P8 at the moment, then a 131.2 from him. That is DTF1 Days and Mongo as the 2 yet to put a time on the board. They're both currently on outlaps at the moment. Then 9 minutes left to go of the session, of course. A lot of the drivers might choose to save tyres, but a bit of a change for this season TJ, in terms of qualifying now. Drivers only able to run the soft tyres, of course, with the Q2 rule all but abolished, so we won't see differing tyres for the top 10 at the start of the race. Do you think that changes people's approach to qualifying slightly this year?
I think so, yeah. Obviously, a majority of people start in the mediums of the race now, and you might get a couple starting the hards, but you know you can't really just waste a set of mediums now in Q1 or Q2 if you know you can get through on comfortably. Everyone's on the soft, so you can't really risk not point decent lap in, especially if you want to progress further in qualifying this year.
Yeah, definitely. And there is no point in drivers taking risks at the moment. It's not the shortest lap in the world, as there is an Alpine backwards then. I think it's Nedder at turn 4. I think that is there. Could be completely wrong.
Yeah.
But he is backwards in the wall. I think he's managed to keep the car running though, and with all the tyres on it, he will get back to the pit zone to continue running in qualifying. His time at the moment 13th as it stands, but he will be through as long as he doesn't do many more instances like that before the end of the session. We're riding on board with DTF1 Days at the moment. One of the two drivers yet to put a time on the board, coming through sector 2 now. He's kept it very clean so far, and I did notice he cut the corner slightly there, but he very cleverly lifted off to avoid that invalidation. The car does seem to be bouncing all around the place, so it's really going to tell here who's got their setups bang on. I know that there's a bit more scope with the setup this season, and that can of course give a bit more of a variation in terms of people's driving style, and DTF1 Days hasn't quite got the rear planted at the moment. Coming around the final corner though, doesn't need to be, as I mentioned, a particularly quick time, but he has kept it clean, and he is going to cross the line and put a time on the board, and it's a 1:31.5 from the Haas driver then to go P9. Mongo just behind him. We couldn't quite get to his camera, but did cross the line then to take over that P9 position and put DTF1 Days in down to P10. And with those 15 drivers having put a time on the board, we have got then the 15 drivers that will progress into Q2.
Yeah, fantastic drivers have made it through. This is a tricky circuit, especially in new cars and being heavier in the traction on it. So, well done to everyone that's made it through. Unfortunate for Pines and Revenge to be out so early, but you know they show really good race pace, and hopefully they'll make some good positions up from race start.
Yep, definitely. It doesn't quite give us much to talk about here, though, does it? With
No.
half the field in the pit. We've just seen Tadas actually a little bit too close to the wall for him. I don't know if he's just trying to get the practice in at the moment, using these 5 minutes perhaps on the same set of tyres that he did that early lap on, but he is continuing around now at a bit of a snail's pace, of course. Did Mongo Days go for another lap? I don't think they did. So, yeah, I think that's the end of qualifying one with about 4 minutes left on the clock then.
Yeah.
But good times from those out in front, TJ, Adrian and Dean. We know they'd be fast, and they have currently got a march on the rest of the field, but of course with the circumstances, how much can we read into these times going into the later stages of qualifying?
I don't think we can read much into it. I think maybe the top 5, 6 have put represented laps in so far. I think going from locker downwards, they've probably eased off a little bit and perhaps saving a little bit more for Q2. You know, these drivers are smart, and they knew 2 people had gone out, so they only had to set a lap really. So I do expect some more of these drivers to get quicker, especially in Q2.
Yep, and hopefully we can have some drivers that can challenge the top 2 at the moment. And we've got Panic and David Lawface and Nadir on an outlap, trying to give us something to watch at the end of the session then. We'll see whether they're going to improve on their times or join the 2 actually that are currently out in qualifying at the moment. Panic starting that flying lap, of course. And TJ, do you think these drivers then would have chose the same set of tyres as they did those opening efforts on to try and save a 3 sets for later part of qualifying? Or do you think they genuinely use another set of new tyres?
I think they've driven another set of tyres, and I'm not sure why they would. Whether they just try to get some practice on the tyres or something, or you know, just scrum up a little bit. Personally, I would have come out on the old set and just, you know, if you want a bit of track practice, just scrub that set up, waste them, and not use them again. But maybe the drivers want that little bit of extra grip just to see prepared for Q2.
Yep, Panic End on his lap then got it all wrong through sector 1, and I'm pretty sure he's not improving on his time as well. Looking like he's taking it very carefully, and perhaps looking to go again, preserving that ERS turn. So what is David Lowface up to at the moment in the Aston Martin? Well, he's going straight across the corner and avoiding validation. That's track limits at his spine. I don't know where he's picked that one up from, but that's a tip to everyone that's watching the stream who races this in the future. It's a great place. Oh, and again, straight across the corner. Absolute no regard for the track limits at the moment. Coming down into the final corner now, the DRS zone of course, one of 3 DRS zones, I believe, here now in Jeddah. I think it was 2 when it first started, now it's 3. Well, I think they've moved one, haven't they? There used to be a really short one.
Yeah, that's right. They've moved
Sector 1.
They've moved it to end of end of Sector 2, start of Sector 3, so you get like 2 DRS zones back, pretty much simultaneous from each other now.
Yep. And David Northwest choosing to abandon his lap then and into the pits, right on board with Ned there at the moment, who was 2 tenths up then through Sector 2. And is he going to choose to complete his lap as well? He is indeed, and crosses the line and goes P13 then, ahead of FPRL Scotsman and David Lowface then. And getting a time on the board, Panic Ken, who was the other driver out on a lap, invalidated then, and will not improve on his time. But we have got Adrian back out there. Not exactly setting his lap alight at the moment without a front wing either.
I was just going to say that, yeah. I'm boring, he's got no front wing. I think Adrian's just trying to get practice down there. He has been struggling with this game. You can't tell from the lap he's set, but he has been struggling with the game, and perhaps just trying to get a bit more confidence in himself, ready for the remaining qualifying sessions.
Yep, well, he's not found any confidence on that run. He'll be straight back into the pits then to get a new front wing. Tadas is out there again as well. In the Red Bull, looking to find some time in his lap. 1 minute 20 left on the clock then. It's opening part of qualifying, and barring any DNFs now and any mishaps, we, as I mentioned, have got the drivers that will go through to yeah. Has improved through Sector 1, so he is finding pace at the moment. Tadas, of course, we know from Tier 3 last season, TJ has got pace, and I know he was kind of tipped and kind of borderline to, trickling into Tier 2, I say that. Big swapper there in the traction zone then. Rear end in the wall, yellow flag out, luckily no one's around him. But of course, that lap is now in the bin, so I don't think we'll see anyone else improve on a time. Panic End is going again, but as I was saying about Tadas, TJ, I mean, he was, one of the rumoured names to perhaps go into Tier 2. And do you think to miss out on Tier 2? We know the quality of the field is very good, but do you think he had the pace to be up there? Of course, finishing second last season.
Yeah, it's a tough one. Magsy did show fantastic pace, but he did have his down moments as well. So it was a bit of an up and down season for Magsy, but on his days, definitely got the pace to be Tier 2. But once again, the fine lines between the tiers are so hard to define, and I think the head of recruitment's done a fantastic job of setting the tiers. And I think it's just unfortunate Magsy hasn't been moved up.
He will surely be gunning for that Tier 3 title this season, and he's got some pace in him at the moment, and he's currently top of the Tier 3 drivers, apart from Espenio, who is currently sat in P3 at the moment. And of course, the leader of the session, Adrian H2O, or H03, whatever you want to call him. He goes by many different names, of course. He does find himself in Tier 2 this season. Promotion from Tier 3. Some people perhaps suggesting he should be in Tier 1. And with that time at the moment, with another driver who very much, I think, believes himself he should be in Tier 1 for this season. Perhaps making a case for himself there. But we'll get back onto that in a moment. There is the classification for Q1, as I mentioned. Adrian, Dean and Espenio, the top 3 in that session, but how much can we read from these times given the uncompetitive nature of the session? We'll only find out in later qualifying sessions. And it's LWS Yorkie in 4th place for the Alpine, Magsy P5, Tadas P6, Locker P7, Fishsticks in P8, Mongo Panic End rounding off the top 10, and we do lose 3 drivers. Ace hit the wall at some point. Well, apparently we lose 3 drivers. Don't know where that happened, but DTF1 Days, Pines and Revengezilla all supposedly out of the session. I think we missed that with Days. Not too sure what happened there, but we'll see if he is in Q2. If not, yeah, we've missed that crucial bit of information somewhere, TJ. and we'll load through and find out. But just before we do that, TJ, as I was saying about Adrian and Dean, two drivers that I think, well, one people think should be in Tier 1, the other one believes himself he should be in Tier 1. Do you think they can do something in these social races to perhaps find and wiggle their way into that Tier 1, or do you think that really they are best suited in Tier 2?
Yeah, I do think they can find some wiggle room and prove themselves to be Tier 1. I think the driver that believes he should be Tier 1 has probably got the better chance. You know, he has picked this game up pretty well, and he is pretty rapid, must say. Yeah, he is miles ahead of the pack. And we'll just have to wait and see what happens and see if he can prove himself in the social races.
Yeah, of course, it is good this pre-season. Of course, it does give us a chance to kind of evaluate the pace of drivers, both in qualifying, one-lap conditions, and of course across the period of a race, because it's not just about the one-lap pace, it is also about what people can do over the distance at the end of the day. Adrian, who we've just mentioned, straight out there on track, and right behind him the other driver that we were speaking of. So they are not messing around here. They want to get the times in early and get through to the final part of qualifying.
Yeah, this is a different qualifying that you mentioned during Q1, that, you know, there's no sitting around waiting to see what tyres everyone's putting on. You know, everyone's going soft, so there's no point sitting in the pits to see what's going on. You might as well get out, get a time on the boards, get yourself back in the pits, and get prepared for a second run.
Yeah, of course. I mean, the track is, you know, it's not quite massively a downforce. You know, it's got a few high-speed corners, but in terms of, it's all about straight-line speed, of course, especially down the back end of the lap. Do you think track evolution plays a part here? Do you think we'll see drivers, you know, find time as the session goes on, or do you think that, especially these two at the front, I know we've got most of the field out now, to be fair, do you think we're going to, you know, not see that track evolution we usually do?
I think we'll see, but not as bad. One thing we haven't really touched on this particular game is that drivers can only really do one push lap unless they back off the lap really early. And that's the way the ERS is set up this year, that it drains it so quick over a lap that you haven't got time to really back out, recharge, and push for a second. So the only way you can do it is if you validate it really early on and regain that ERS back. So I don't think we'll see the track evolution as bad as it did last game, but we will definitely see it.
Yep, and perhaps that will play into the favour of those that have come out a little bit later on their outlap. Scotsman still sitting in the pit lane then, waiting for the drivers to put down a bit of rubber as we watch Adrian run very far wide and invalidate his lap. Then he's going to be planted through that first sector as well. One driver that does look to have the bit between his teeth at the moment, Dean then, in the Red Bull, his beloved Red Bull. We know he's a big fan of, being from the Netherlands, a big Max Verstappen fan. Max Verstappen as well, to be fair. But let's see if he can treat Max's Red Bull any nicer than the two drivers did in the opening part of qualifying. Although, to be fair, TJ, yeah, Days isn't in this session, so he must have had a bit of a moment somewhere along the line. Not sure where that happened, if anyone else caught it. what happened to him? But here we go then with Dean coming down into the final corner now. DRS wide open, and he'll look to try and hug the inside wall and avoid the outside, of course, in that Red Bull. Now the final DRS coming up to the line, hugs the pit wall close as possible, and pretty much matching then his time from Q1 at 29.2. TJ Ospenio 3/10 up in the McLaren. That's a great lap from the McLaren driver. Dean setting that time, do you think that's really all he has in terms of one lap pace?
I would like to say no, but the fact he's matched it in his Q2 run suggests that he hasn't got much more else to give, unless he is generally trying to sandbag a little bit. But I don't see why he would want to sandbag.
No, and as we mentioned, he is trying to make that name for himself, get himself into that Tier 1 where he's raced the previous 2 seasons, of course, and perhaps he might need to find a little bit of time in order to do that, although we know Espenio has got great pace and he's going well today as well, in 29.5, perhaps just resonating with the game slightly. P2 has the bit between his teeth as well. That time should see him through to the final part of qualifying. Looking at the times that have come in then, so Magsy with that 130.5, Yorkie then now P2 for the Alpine, 129.3 from him, just behind Dean, and yeah, at the moment is P2. We're yet to see the best of Adrian, who came back into the pits after invalidating. Perhaps, TJ, going back to what you were saying then, if you get it wrong on the first lap, there's just so much jeopardy, because you don't have, unless you really back off and try and save that ERS, you're not going to get another time in on the second push lap.
Yeah, I suppose it represents as Davies dropped it as we tried in the pit. No, Davies dropped it in sector 3.
Yeah, just at the end then, just at the end of the lap. I think he's done exactly what Revenge Silla did earlier on. He's got it in that wall on the outside, and yeah, that Aston Martin then will be taking no further part in this session. One less driver for some of those to worry about then. It was on a 134.8. It definitely needed to improve to make it through to the final part of qualifying, but will not get the chance to do so now. There's a Red Bull round as well. Not quite blocking FPR Avaloka here on a hot lap now. Now Ferrari, he's almost got rid of all of his ERS as well. Fuel light flashing as well, so perhaps he's also on a second push lap here on those tyres. And I think he's actually run out of fuel towards the end of the lap.
Yeah,
indeed.
That'll tie into what we were saying earlier, that you can only do one push lap really. Perhaps drivers only fueling up to be able to do the one push lap to gain a little bit of a couple of extra temps when they're under fueling slightly. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting Q2 and Q3 sessions, I think, all season. So it's going to be the fact which driver wants to take the risk and who can put the lap in without validating it and keeping the ERS all there. And as I said before, David Love's crash out, we're sort of moving closer to what they do in real F1, where they can only really push for one lap at a time.
And of course that will play into some drivers' favour more than others. I know a couple of drivers like to get a couple of laps in to kind of warm up, but that it doesn't look like it's going to be an option so far this season. One driver who did struggle on his first lap and now struggles on the second as well. A fantastic 60 there from Adrian. Lit up the rears on the exit of the corner. Didn't hit the wall though, remarkably, so no damage to that car. But again, struggling with that second lap, and so just can't keep his nerve at the moment in that Williams. And perhaps this is a sign of something to come. He just needs to get a little bit more comfortable with the game.
Yeah, definitely. I did mention that he has been struggling with the game, and he set a really good Q1 time, and he is showing his struggles, and it's all about your throttle control in this game and your smooth inputs to the steering wheel. I have seen drivers where they just pull a bit too much steering input in, and it sends the car around, or your throttle control's a little bit loose, and you try to accelerate out the corner, and the back end spins on you, so that the cars are so much more sensitive this time round.
Yeah, that will really reward the drivers that are sensitive with their inputs, of course. And Adrian does get a blistering time on the board, then at 138.2 from him, then puts in P9 for now, but will most definitely need to go again. And there is still 4 drivers yet to put a time on the board. We know Scotsman sat in the pits for a long time, perhaps looking to just do the one run and try and get himself through to Q3. Another driver as well, TJ, that has made the drop from Tier 2 to Tier 3. I don't know if we've mentioned that tonight, but FPR Scotsman, the Godfather as some people call him, as we see Mongo. I don't know what he did there. He's bumper cars with the wall, but he has managed to somehow keep that front wing intact as well. They're coming around the final corner. Let's see if he carries on with this lap. He is going to then, and comes across the line, and somehow it's still largely competitive, a 130.3. He might have gained a bit of time from bouncing off the walls there. But as we were saying about Scotsman, they made the drop from Tier 2 to Tier 3 this season. Of course, I don't know, he's pleasantly surprised about that. I think he's I don't think it was unexpected. I think he kind of knew it was going to happen. But obviously you raced with him last season, TJ, Tier 3. Do you think he's got the pace to perhaps pick up a few podiums or even wins in Tier 3 this season?
Yeah, definitely. Scotsman's got a lot of pace in him. Every driver's got a favourite tracks, and they've got the bad tracks. But I think last year Scotsman, he had a decent season. He was up there with the top 10. Most races he was there. So yeah, he is surprised. He is pleasantly surprised he's been dropped. But I do expect to see him fighting on podiums and perhaps getting a couple of wins in there as well.
Yep, he'll definitely be hoping for that as well, and he is going to cross the line in his first time of the session. It's a 1:30.6 then, and that puts him P6 at the moment out of those drivers that have put a time on the board, just shy of Maxie's time at the moment in P5. So yeah, relatively competitive there from Scotsman, and perhaps I'll give him a little bit of confidence then going into the main season, of course. And TJ, driver I know you're very fond of, Cruiser, riding on board with him now. He's a 10th up through Sector 1. Let's see about Sector 2 then, as he comes up to the split now then. Driving for that Haas, and he is 6/10 up at the moment, so that is probably looking like he will perhaps find himself in P7 on the final sector, of course. Coming down now into the final corner, DRS wide open, of course. 46% on that battery, so perhaps if he wanted to, he might get another bite at the cherry if he has fueled up for a couple of laps. But will he need to then, as he comes up to the line and crosses it? And it is a 1:30.8 then, P7 as expected, and a little bit shy of his fellow Tier 3 drivers here, and perhaps, as you mentioned, TJ, some drivers just do have a preferred circuit, and perhaps he's not quite found the rhythm that he would be used to yet.
Yeah, definitely. You mentioned I'm very fond of Cruiser. I had really good battles with him in Tier 2 last season in the races we raced, and it's a shame to see him get on to Tier 3, but it's on fine lines between the tiers on about that. Just because he's been dropped, he definitely shouldn't be gutted. He's got the pace to be there, once again, to be on podiums, potentially even get race wins. And yeah, it's perhaps Sector 1 he's losing his time on. It is very much suited to a wheel, this track is, and if you can nail Sector 1, the other sectors just follow along with it. But if you lose time in Sector 1, you just can't get it back because it's just mainly straights in Sectors 2 and 3.
Yeah, definitely. What you mentioned, about Sector 1, it is very much a wheel kind of sector, part of the lab really, and as you mentioned, the back end as well. It just allows you to carry a bit more speed, of course, using a wheel as opposed to a controller, but some people manage to make it work. I know that Yorkie, I think, especially plays on a controller, so drivers do make it work for themselves sometimes. And yeah, Cruiser perhaps just needs to get a little bit more confidence in the game. As you mentioned, he did have pace that season in Tier 2, so I'm sure he'll find himself somewhere in the front of Tier 3, but we're riding on board with Panic End at the moment, who's currently 1.1 seconds up on his lap at the moment, and this might put him straight up into the mid-pack of that top 10 at the moment, around kind of Magsy and Scotsman, depending on this final sector. Of course, let's see if he can nail the final corner. A little bit wide, but it will allow him to carry a bit more speed on exit, and it is a long straight as well to gain that time, and he's going to come up and over the line, and it is indeed a 1:30.5, smack bang in the middle of the top 10, then 5th place for him, just ahead of Magsy by 200ths of a second. Another driver that needs to put a lap on the board is FPR Lock at the moment, 33.0 through the first sector. A little bit of a love tap as well with the wall, with 1:30 on the clock. TJ, the pressure's on now, because surely if he's choosing to push on this lap, this will be his final lap of the session.
Yeah, definitely. So he's got to make sure he gets this right. Now's his chance to back up if he needs to recharge the RS. Otherwise, yeah, he's going to run out, and he isn't choosing to back out. So let's see. As Adrian goes fastest for 28.7, that's a fantastic lap from the Tier 2 driver.
Yeah, putting a little bit more daylight between himself and Demon, and Locker has managed to keep it all but calm at the moment. Been a little bit of a sketchy lap, but will it be quick? Sometimes it is, sometimes the fast and harried laps really kind of go hand in hand. He hasn't invalidated, which is crucial then. He's coming up over the line. It's a 1:31.2 to beat, crosses the line now, and it was indeed a fast and harried lap then from FPR Locker, 1:30.3. That'll see him through into the final part of qualifying then. And all the question marks now are being asked of Tadas here. P14 at the moment for Red Bull. It's the crunch time. The checkered flag is about to wave then, so this will be the final lap from the Red Bull in qualifying if he doesn't beat Cruiser's 130.8, and Cruiser will not be able to improve on his time because he's currently in the pit lane.
Yep, Tadas had a fantastic sector 1. He did a 32.9, and he's kept it nice and clean throughout this lap, and he's set to a 101.9 with a purple sector 2. We don't know if that's a valid purple sector 2 or not. We know what the games are like for the show, but we'll certainly see how he does for this next sector. Keep it nice and clean, DRS wide open, getting prepared for the final corner. Takes it very nicely. Keeps it away from the wall, which is what every driver wants to do. DRS wide open. And it looks like it's going to be 130 something, a 129.8. That's a fantastic lap.
Yeah, great time from Tadas then, and a 129.8 pushes your homeboy TJ Cruiser down into P11 and out of the session. Neder has also invalidated his final time, and then will take no further part in qualifying then. P12, he will start for the racing.
Yeah.
And FPR Scotsman on a lap at the moment, 4 tenths down, won't improve on that time, but doesn't need to. He will find himself through into the next part of qualifying. Locker knows it as well then. The checkered flag is out. There is your top 10 that are going through to the final part of qualifying, TJ. And as we mentioned, it looked like a fast time for Cruiser to get himself through into the final part of qualifying, but perhaps that track evolution was a little bit heavier than we expected with those late times from Tadas and Locker.
Yeah, you know, you still shouldn't be disappointed. It says tactical pole, everyone says. It's probably not as powerful in this game because everyone starts in the same tyres. But he's going to show some pace, no doubt. One thing I do want to pick up on, if you take away the top 3 and essentially put a Spinio in the top spot, from 4th down to 8th, there's only a second separating, and then at 4th to 10th it's 1.1 seconds. So just look at the T3 guys there, it just shows how close they are already.
Yep. We imagine they'll only get closer as well as those drivers that haven't had the time to put the practice in will get to do so before the season start. As we watch Neder be wheeled back into his garage then. There we have it then. There is your classification for qualifying 2 then of the Tier 3. So around Jeddah, and it is Adrian who stole the show in Q2, half a second quicker over Dean and Yorkie then in Q2 and P3. And Spenio P4, top of the Tier 3 boys then. Fantastic effort from him and perhaps showing his pace in this pre-season. Tadas P5, Locker P6, Mongo P7, Panic End P8, Magsy and Scotsman then rounding off the top 10. But we do lose 4 drivers after losing 3 part of qualifying, and those 4 are Cruiser, Neder, Fishdix and David Lowface then, who we saw hit the wall early on. Big names going out there in Q2 in Cruiser and Fishdix, of course, both Tier 1, 2 drivers last season. TJ, do you think I'm a bit disheartened with that, especially Fishdix as well? As I know last season, in Jeddah, he did quite well in the Tier 2 race, scored some good points, but he hasn't quite managed to find his rhythm on this game just yet.
I think we're a little bit disappointed, but also I also think that people haven't had much time on the game. They're still getting used to the cars, the way they feel, etc. So even though there's disappointments there, they're probably happy with themselves to get to that point, and just know they've got to put a bit of extra practice in ahead of season 4, and perhaps they'll be there in that top 10.
Yeah, and of course the field, I should say, does have a few different tiered drivers in there, a few Tier 2s, where of course they will not have to fight those drivers next season. But of course it is a pre-season race, just trying to get as big of a grid as possible and trying to get a bit of a base mark to evaluate some of the drivers. So as we said, perhaps where they do need a late move then into another tier. 11 minutes on the clock then, and we already have 3 drivers coming out on circuit. In fact, there's quite a few coming up the pit lane now, trying to get an early time in. How many runs do you think drivers can squeeze in here, TJ? I know it's not quite the shortest lap in the build. Do you think we'll see 2 or 3 from the drivers in this session?
I'm going to say 2 for most, 3 if you probably back out your first lap if you invalidate it. But yeah, I imagine see two runs for most drivers. I don't think many drivers have saved 3 sets this quali session.
No, probably not. Perhaps some of the Tier 2 drivers might have looked to use those tyres on occasions, but only time will tell. Of course, we don't have all the information to hand at the moment, and it is going to be Adrian who leads us then in this Q3 session. He starts here the first lap in this qualifying. There is a pole for pole that's gone live. Thank you, David Lowface, for putting it up. We've got, well, basically 2 options. We've got Adrian or Dean. That's it. That's the list.
I feel hard done to have for Spinio. He hasn't been up there, but he's been a couple tenths behind Dean there. So I'd feel hard done to if I was the McLaren driver.
Well, let's see if Adrian can keep his nerve then. We've seen it around a couple of times already in this qualifying session in Q2. Couldn't quite hook up the lap early on. Will he manage to hold his nerve here then? Through sector 1 now, he has kept it clean through the opening couple of corners then, but this is the tight technical section that drivers often find themselves caught out by, but he does seem to be going very steady on the throttle at the moment. Bit of traffic in the final corner as all the drivers bar one are out on the circuit at the moment. Tadas remains in the pits and perhaps having to use extra tyres to get through to this part of qualifying. It would help if I had the lap data up so we can see the interval there through sector 1. 32.5 from Adrian in the Williams, and great opening sector. Is that going to be pole setting pace? And he has still got 2 more sectors to go, and this is where he struggled in Q2, and he has kept it together this time and gets very close to the wall without touching it then, and he definitely looks to be extracting all the pace he can out of that Williams at the moment. And through sector 2 it's a 101.1. Can't quite get the individual sector time unless you want to do the maths, but what I do know is that is very quick. And there is only 1 more sector to go. Yellow flag out. I think the other Red Bull is round of Dean then on his fast lap, getting out the way of other drivers here. And Adrian around the final corner does hook the apex very well, avoids the wall on exit, and is this going to be enough then for pole position? It will of course be the fastest time at the moment, and it's a 28.7 once again, matching that time from Q2. Can anyone beat that? Maxi with a 130.0. Adrian's gone straight on at turn 1, I think, there. Down the escape road. Not too sure what's happened there. Yorkie with a 29.3 now. Great time from him, but here's a Spenio then, a 29.8 from him. P3 at the moment out of the 4 drivers that have got a time on the board. It's going to be Panic N next across the line, but this doesn't look the best lap in the world. A 131.3 from him, beaten by Scotsman just behind him at a 130.8, and Mongo then across the line, a 130.2. Decent lap from him in that Mercedes, where his teammate failed on the opening effort. And as I mentioned, Dean then had the issue on his opening run. It looks like he's pushing again on this fast lap, TJ. Did you see what happened to him on the opening run? Because I know he was backwards at one point.
Yeah, so he invalidated through sector 1 through the tricky sector, backed off, and I think he's got a bit trigger happy through sector 2 and just lost the back end.
Well, he was a couple of tenths down on Adrian's time then through sector 1. Looking to try and make some time from sector 2 here. Nailing the chicane there, keeping it out of the wall. Coming up now to the next interval where we'll get a bit more information on his lap. It's a 101.5. It's not anywhere near Adrian's pace at the moment. It's 4 tenths off him, and he's going to have a mighty final sector. There is a car ahead of him to try and give him a slight tow, maybe, into the final corner, maybe even the start-finish straight. I don't think he's going to gain 4 tenths off the car ahead of him though. But this time does look enough for at least P2. And he is exactly using that tow from the Alpine ahead of him. It does come across the line, and it is P2 then. A 129.2 from Dean in the Red Bull. Not quite enough to challenge that mighty time from Adrian, but I mean, we saw in Q2, TJ, that 28.7 was a bit high for anybody to reach. And it looks like it might be the same in the final part of qualifying here. Just quickly, Tanis is about to come up over the line, and it is a 130.0 from him. P6 from the other Red Bull. So Red Bull 2 and 6 at the moment then.
Yeah, once again, just saying it's a fantastic lap from Adrian there. That is going to take some beating. Dean perhaps my fresh set, you know, if you can set a decent lap in his first run, can maybe pull a bit more time up, but he's only really matched his time to every quali session here. Once again, a massive shout out to Espino there. He is pushing it. He's the top dog out of all the T3 drivers currently, and he's done that in every quali session so far.
Yeah, he has done well, and perhaps making a little bit of a name for himself. I know he said he doesn't want to go tier 1, but that pace over Dean, who I think, as I mentioned, was rumoured to be, considered for a tier 1 seed. That kind of pace is very quick. We saw it at the end of tier 3 last season at TJ. I think especially Mexico was one that sticks out in mind. The pace that he did have over the rest of the field was pretty substantial, and perhaps it's just showing again here in this early part of F1 22.
Yeah, definitely. He doesn't like to big himself up. He is very much quiet, and the say doesn't go tier 1, but to be 5 times ahead of a tier 2 driver, he's definitely got it hooked up, and he has been obviously hiding a little bit of pace somewhere. And yeah, I think he has got to be careful that he doesn't get moved up to tier 1.
I'll say he's got to be careful, but with that kind of pace, he's definitely going to be right up with those at the front of tier 1 should he make the promotion. But of course, it's not just about tonight as well. It's a whole load of factors go into deciding where a driver belongs in an FPRL tier, so this is just one of the many things to consider this evening then. 3 drivers on an outlap at the moment, 4 minutes left to go on the clock, so these drivers gone a little bit early, and perhaps that isn't going to play into their hands later on. They're a bit out of sync with the rest of the field now, and there is a Ferrari coming up now, and they're going to have to get out of the way of a Spenio then coming into turn 1, just starting his hot lap.
Yeah, can I imagine these guys are trying to push for maybe 3 runs, and perhaps using this run if it's not good enough to jump in for another set and then come back out, but it's going to be really close if they want to try to do that.
The Scotsman did get very nicely out of the way, but I still think he put a Spenio off slightly coming through turn 1 and 2 there. Sector 1 seems to have gone relatively well for the McLaren driver, coming up to the interval line now, and he is very fractionally faster than his previous time by just under 300ths of a second. Then there is a yellow flag out as well for another Ferrari. Did he get in the way of Panic in there? Who looks to be on a hot lap. Not like he might have done according to the minimap, but we were riding on board with the Spenio's lap time then. And he is now coming down towards that sector to cut off and see if he has managed to find pace in the middle part of the lap then. And he is currently 2/10 up, and that is enough. Not enough to challenge the top 3, but it might put himself a bit of distance between him and those behind him to try and secure that P4, of course. He's had pace on the entire qualifying. CJ's huge groan was for Magsy, who appears to have dropped it on a hot lap, so he'll start no higher than P5. But let's quickly finish off Espenio's lap then, coming up to the line now. The McLaren, who has had pace on the whole of qualifying, shows a bit more pace as well. 29.5 from him. Will he get time for another lap on the board? I wish I could see, but Magsy's caused a beautiful yellow flag for us, so we can't actually see how long is left. But TJ, what happened to Magsy on that hot lap?
He, as he took the first corner coming into sector 3, he took it a bit wide, come back across the curb, and just went a little bit too close to the wall, and smacked it and just spun himself around, and it was game over from that point.
Yeah, so misfortune then for Magsy in the Alfa Romeo, the sole Alfa Romeo left in this qualifying, of course. He will start no higher than P5, providing those behind him do not improve before the end of the session. Here's Scotsman through the first sector. Seems like he gets it clean so far, and he is half a second up on his time then.
Yeah, it's a fantastic first sector from Scotsman, and hopefully he can keep the pace up for the remaining sectors now. Hopefully keeps it nice and clean for this next corner where it can easily invalidate. Looks like he doesn't really kiss the apex, but still enough to keep him going. And it's just all about just... Oh, go on, sorry.
I was just about to say we were going to get another indication then of his time, and did he manage to carry through that advantage from sector 1? He has indeed, and in fact improved even more, just short of 700ths quicker now than his previous lap. This might be enough to get him up into P5, and he has a storming final sector here. Scotsman looking to make a name for himself in the opening social race of this season in Tier 3. He's got a bit wide there through the final corner, does hit the wall very slightly. He might manage to carry the speed either, and he hasn't chosen to go to the inside wall, crosses the line, and I think that cost him a good 2 or 3, even 4 tenths that final corner, because he was only 3 tenths up on his fast lap, and he was set there to go at least P5 or 6, but unfortunately could not hold it together.
Yeah, that's a shame. He obviously just went a little bit too deep on his brakes and hoped he could have corrected it before he hit the wall. And yeah, that's just unfortunate, but you shouldn't be disheartened by that. You know, as you say, I reckon he lost 3-4 attempts just from that one little mistake. So hopefully he can keep stuck during the race and make some positions up to overtake.
He was on for a fantastic time, but not quite managing to follow through in the latter stages of the lap. Then Mongo goes P5, pushing Maxi then down into P6, just faster than the Alfa Romeo. We were watching Tadas, who was 7 tenths up on his lap, but then found an issue in Sector 2, and he's come into the pits and will start no higher than P7 for the race. Very shortly there, his time might have been enough to get himself in P3 as it stands. Dean crossed the line with a 28.8, then just shy of the time from Adrian. And I was about to say a driver who was going to challenge those front two, LWS Yorkie, who was over 3 tenths quicker in Sector 1, invalidates then towards the end of the lap, and then will start no higher now than P3. But I don't think anyone else is improving at the moment. Locker is currently 1.7 down on his lap, so I think that order on the left-hand side of the screen is what the starting order is going to be for the race then.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty much as I sort of expected from Q2. You got the three tier 2 guys up in the top 3, and then following that you got Spinio. Mongo set a fantastic up to points off P5 there. Magsy P6, Tadas P7 is probably a little bit disappointed of that, considering his pace he had last season. Same as Scotsman, he's probably disappointed of his lap. You know, we have discussed that he probably lost 3-4 attempts from that one corner. Locker, I mean, yeah, it's just from this pre-season, looking at just the tier 3 guys here, it's going to be an interesting season if they can keep up keeping this close and getting closer through the season.
Yeah, definitely. I think what we're seeing to mention bodes well for Tier 3 next season. A driver that bodes very well for is Espinio, who's just since joining FPRL has just picked up pace race after race, really. He started off as a driver kind of in the mid-pack, but he's found his way fighting towards the front of the field. And P4, as you can see there, the highest of the Tier 3 drivers, so well done for that one, sir. But it is Adrian who does take pole position for the race by just 0.04 of a second in P2 then, so perhaps not much to separate between those drivers at the end of the day. LWS Yorkie, many drivers tipping him to be quick in Tier 2 this season, half a second back in P3 for Alpine. As I mentioned, Espelio in P4, highest of the Tier 3 drivers, and it's the rest of the Tier 3 drivers, and we've got Mongo, Magsy, Tadas, Scotsman, Locker and Panic End rounding off the top 10. Panic End will be a bit disappointed with his lap as well, perhaps more pace in that Mercedes for the race. But if there's one thing for certain, TJ, it is that we are in for a very interesting race round here with the different tiers and the different people finding their rhythm around this track.
Yeah, definitely. I can't wait to see how it goes. I mean, I'm not sure if you're going to pick up on it or not or mention it, but obviously we got the formation lap that's changed this year, and obviously the pit stops that have changed this year. It's going to be interesting to see what the drivers decide to do in their formation lap and how they position themselves on their grid spot. Obviously, for viewers that might not know, I think you can point yourself at an angle this year. Is that right, Biddle?
You can, yeah, you can. Sorry, I was just needing to cough there. Yeah. Yes. Yes, you can. I I've had a cough now for over a week, and I was dreading doing comps. I'm gonna quickly get a drink and cough myself to death. TJ, if you want to waffle on for a bit more, as it looks like the drivers have all very nicely decided not to ready up and allow people that needs to go and have a cough to go and have a cough.
Yep. So yeah, it's just picking back up on the formation changes. Still normal drivers drive themselves around, but instead of the game taking over as to go over a particular spot, drivers will need to line themselves up on their own grid spot now. There's different variations to it. So you've got your purple, which is bang on, your green, which is you've sort of got right almost there. When you got your reds, where you get disqualified and you get pulled back from your spot, gives you a bit of disadvantage from the start. And yeah, as we've mentioned as well, that you can point yourself at a certain angle if you want to, so you can try and launch yourself at another driver to try and get that position, or perhaps if you're up front to position yourself to try and cut another driver off, try and cut the inside or outside of you. It's all to play for, and hopefully if people do point themselves, they don't take each other out on the start finish line, and they actually make it on turn one. And hopefully drivers as well have a clean turn one through this. The cars are heavier. You do brake differently. You might not have your tyres up to temperature potentially. So it's an interesting race, and hopefully we don't see too many incidents. Another change for this game as well is that you can do your own pit stops as such, where drivers will come into the pit lane, and you have to press a button to turn yourself into the pit box. Once again, you've got different variations of it. So you've got your purple, which is bang on, quickest pit stop. Green, which is you've done okay, a little bit slow in your pit stops, and you've got your red, where it's your slowest pit stop. You've not hit your pit box right, or gone a bit too far forward, and it's the slowest. Also got pit stop errors this year, which I haven't seen personally just yet. But I have heard drivers say there is pit stop errors where your pit crew might struggle to get a wheel off or pull a wheel on. So you can't really rely on your pit strategy this year.
Oh dear, do you want to write the manual? nice detailed breakdown there, TJ. But yeah, as you mentioned, a few good, decent changes that might throw up a little bit of a difference in the race. I mean, I'm a huge fan of being able to line up in the grid box. I think I always point my car literally like at a huge angle. I could decide P20, but my car will be pointing in completely opposite direction.
I mean, why not? Why not do it? Point your car, try take another drive out, scare him, get that position, on you go.
Elbows out into turn one, of course, and this turn one, to be fair, is no different. It's going to be very interesting. Of course, a huge change, as I've mentioned in the qualifying section, is the difference in tyres. So there you go, then that is the choices that drivers have gone for on the left-hand side of the screen. 3 drivers choosing to go onto the hard cruiser. David Lowface and Revenge Zilla, then hard tyres, looking to go long on the opening stint, perhaps waiting for a safety car a little bit later on in the race. And the LWS Yorkie up in P3, looking to make quick gains off the start. Then soft tyres, TJ. I've had very reliable intel, I shall say, that those soft tyres are supposedly only going to last for 5 laps. So if that is the case, Yorkie is going to have to make some considerable gains to make that soft tyre strategy work. Do you think he's looking to do a 2-stop like it's suggesting on screen right now?
He must be. I mean, you've got to be crazy going a soft tyre on this. They do wear down pretty quickly. Maybe he's relying on an early safety car that'll help him out. But I mean, it's nice to see a driver do a different strategy, just going straight onto mediums. He is potentially going to force the hands of a couple of drivers, think about what they're doing. We'll see how his strategy plays out during the race.
I like this being able to choose your own tyres in the race. And some people aren't a fan of it. Some people think the top 10 should be punished for doing well in qualifying and starting on some old tyres. But I've never been a huge fan of that. I like the variation in strategy. Of course, as we can see, we've got Yorkie who's going to complete the difference to the top 10. And we might see him make some huge gains off the line. A big sneeze there from Mrs. TJ in the background. Bit of hay. It is hay fever season, people. Get your whatever you need for hay fever down here. I don't have it myself, so I have no idea what you take for hay fever. But I think you need to treat Mrs. TJ to some there. Later this week. We've got drivers lining up already, as we can see. The Alpine of Yorkie, I can see on board, is pointing as if he's going to jump straight past Adrian down into turn 1. Mongo's missed his pit box, and let's see if I can see here. There we go. You can see just about on the right hand side. Look how far back it starts you if you get it wrong. Maxie's now such an advantage now. 4 drivers getting it wrong then, lining up on the grid. The driver's finally lining up on the grid. It feels like an age since Adrian took that pole position, but we do wait then for 5 red lights to get us underway in this Tier 3 social race. And they're off, but it was a bit of a delayed reaction there as the lights went out, and as expected, Yorkie looking to make the move on Adrian down into turn 1 on the outside now of Dean, trying to get through turn 1 all clean and fair. We've got a driver around, it's Panic End, I think, who's had a bit of a unfortunate start. Oh, and there's a huge crash at the back of the field.
Oh, yeah, David Blow faces out. Spinio is dropped to P17. That is an absolute nightmare.
Yeah, David Lawface round then off turn 2. Yellow flags out. Of course, no safety car just yet on my screen, but they seem to be driving very slow.
I think
if there's no,
I think there might be VSC.
We have no idea what the. Oh, it is VSC. I can see it on the side. Yeah, there we go. That was helpful. Thanks for that. Yeah, I think what happened to David Lawface? Was it Perez in the race last year who got sideways, or someone got sideways and collected Perez or something at some stage? That part of the track. All I know is that David Lawface was sideways on the track, and Espino was a passenger coming up to him there. Panic End, as we mentioned, has the spin at turn 1, so we can see the big gainers and the big losers then from the start of the race. Scotsman then up into P4. Great start for him, an even better one for Pines and Revengilla off the back row then up to P8 and 9 in the points already. Both of them up 8 places. Big losers, of course, are Spenio, who we just talked up so much. Unfortunately not getting the start to his race that he would have wanted, as he got coming to the pits for damage as well. We'll keep an eager eye on that one. And Panic End down 5 then with a spin down into turn 1, and TJ up the top of the screen there flashed very quickly before our eyes. Adrian drive-through penalty speeding under the safety car.
Yeah, that's very fraudulent from Adrian, that is. I think there might be a potential glitch with that. I think I've seen a couple of drivers complain about it, but I can't verify it. But yeah, that's a shame for him, that is.
Adrian will have to serve that drive-through penalty within 3 laps, of course, and there is no full safety car at the moment for him to come up to the back of the field. We have had a couple of drivers into the pits, though. Neda and Espenio then did have to pit for damage. We'll have a look very shortly to see if any of those drivers needed to change tyres. Adrian round then the middle part of the lap. His race goes from bad to worse. From the lead of the race, he knew he had to serve a drive-through anyway, but he just lost the back end. I don't know if he picked up any damage. I think he did. Doesn't look like he did. But now P8 and having to serve a drive-through as well. He's completely out of this race at the moment.
Yeah, definitely. That's a shame from Adrian. That is, you put a fantastic lap in for quali, and yeah, it's just been undone within the first lap of racing, which is a shame.
There's a huge fight going on as well here. TJ, down into turn 1. I'm just waiting for that crash, and Day's going to bring out a safety car and perhaps save this fight.
VSC again.
Yorkie. It's another VSC. It does save Yorkie. You just made a pass for the lead and had a very quick Red Bull looking to retake that lead down into turn 1. Of course, the VSC doesn't reset the DRS clock, so DRS will be active on this lap when we go racing again, providing it doesn't turn into a full safety car. And Yorkie, looking to make those soft tyres work in the opening phase, has got himself into the lead. TJ, what happened to Days then in the middle part of the lap?
He dropped it where Revenge didn't quali. I didn't quite catch how he dropped it, but I imagine he's just either got a bit too felt happy, or he's touched the wall like Mags and just spun it. Obviously, this doesn't work into the advantage of Adrian, who has still got that drive-through penalty. And he can't serve it under VSC conditions, unfortunately. So yeah, it's just not working out for the T2 driver currently. I mean, Revenge Zilla P5, what a fantastic start from him.
Yeah, he's managed to get ahead of Pines now, who started just ahead of him, really making those hard tyres work. And we are racing once again. Then, as I mentioned, DRS is enabled. Will Dean be able to make use of that, considering they only just went through the detection zone? He will towards the end of this lap, of course. We've had 2 racing laps now, coming to the end of the 3rd. Those soft tyres, as we know, supposedly won't go too much further. Of course, the VSC does help very slightly with extending that tyre stint for Yorkie. And the crucial thing is now, can he get out of that 1 second DRS zone? But Dean looking very strong at the moment indeed, as Mongo and Scotsman then down into turn 1 looking to have a scrap as well.
Yeah, fantastic from Mongo. He had DRS on Scotsman and just used it to his full advantage and got them moved on to turn 1. Scotsman is a little bit back on him though, so he'll get, as long as you keep throwing, you'll get DRS again when you get to sector 2. To be honest, the pack's pretty spread out, purely because...
Oh, sorry TJ, Scotsman's in the wall. He's in the wall midway around the first sector. He has fortunately ghosted through the 2 or 3 cars that have come through him now. But that's all of his good work from this race going to waste. And down to P9 now after that strong start. Just ahead now of Adrian, who looks like he has served that drive-through penalty then.
Yep, he has. Obviously can't change the tyres or anything there, so he's still sticking on the mediums. But the pack is so spread apart here due to various different accidents and the VSC coming out and perhaps people getting caught out from that. So there isn't many battles happening up and down the grid currently.
Well, Revenge Zilla just had a heart-in-mouth moment, and Mongo's had an even bigger one there, and he's very much back. That's a huge crash for Mongo. Huge accident. Will that be a full safety car? We already had 2 virtual safety cars.
I think it's a VSC again.
So far, we can't see. It just says yellow flag. No, it's a full safety car. It is a full safety car. So we do have then the first full safety car of the session. Thanks, game, for not giving that one away. It is a full track yellow, but that doesn't really tell us what it was. We had to look at the side boards once again. A full safety car then. Yorkie taking advantage of that into the pits on those soft tyres. Revenge Zilla also in the pits as well, swapping to, I think, is it mediums? I'll try and bring up the tyres. That would help. There we go, it is mediums, thought it was. And they are a new set of mediums and looking to get rid of the hards already. Strange that he obviously will have to pit again, whether he expected to do a 2-stop anyway. That is what he's committed to now, getting those mediums on so early. But a lot of drivers joining him, and one driver who's really gained from this is Yorkie, who we know was running the soft tyres early on. He's managed to pit TJ, come out on hard tyres, and is still P3.
Yeah, as I mentioned, he was banking on an early safety car here. Obviously, VSC's helped him extend his stint out a little bit. Kept tyre life in these soft tyres, and yeah, it was no brainer for him to pit at this point in. Pull his strategy and effectively put him on a sort of same strategy as the 2 guys ahead of him.
Yeah, definitely. Dean and Pines, fantastic stuff already, up into P2 from 16. Of course, they've had a few crashes and a few virtual and full safety cars now, and now he has taken advantage of all of that to get himself up alongside Dean, who started the race in P2, of course, but looking behind them on those hard tyres. And the hard tyres worked for Revenge Zilla in the opening stage of this race, so he'll be hoping to put them to similarly good use as well. But big disappointment for Mongo TJ, who we know, had the pace today. He had a decent qualifying, decent start to the race as well, was up in P3. But again, just another victim to that particular part of the track. I think that's the 3rd or 4th driver that we've seen in the wall round there today. I haven't drove the circuit on this game yet, particularly in detail, but is that somewhere that really just catches drivers out? Because clearly tonight it has.
Yeah, I'm the same. I haven't really drove this track much in this game, so yeah, I just imagine it's just catching drivers out. Maybe if they're going a bit wide and trying to correct themselves, or I mean, it is a fast-paced corner from the quick switch to the left to the right, and perhaps drivers just getting a bit too happy on the accelerator, and the V is just not agreeing with it and just going on them.
Yeah, lighting up the rears, really. The traction, as you mentioned, perhaps just catching some drivers out. It is a learning curve, this. I think we expected it with the new kind of generation of cars as well. They're completely different to the cars we've had over the past, what, probably 9 years or so now, I guess. New aero and things like that. All the aero coming from the floor. I know that this season you damage the front wing. It doesn't quite affect you as much as it did on previous generations of game. And yeah, clearly a few drivers qualifying and the race needing to perhaps just get a little bit more comfortable with the cars ahead of the season opening in a couple of weeks' time. Of course, this is the second race in the season as well, so they'll be back racing here in about 3 weeks or so. So it is good practice for all those drivers looking to get March at the start of the season. So I haven't wasted any time tonight. Mongo Days, David Office, are out the race now. They still have gained some knowledge as opposed to those that haven't raced tonight for the opening bits of the season.
Yeah, definitely, and you know, some drivers probably haven't got setups on. They might be using some of the preset setups as well, and you know, it's like I say, it's just that extra knowledge about how they can tweak their own setups. Do they need to make the suspension a bit lighter or stiffer? Do they need to lower the ride height up and down? Do they need to play with the differential on the engine? You know, there's all these that drivers are still trying to play with and get the perfect sweet spot on it, and yeah. Anyone driving tonight just gain that advantage of anyone that hasn't turned up.
Yep, and of course they will have learned a little bit more on the cars around here. I mean, it's just going to come with time, isn't it? I mean, as I mentioned, it's just something that will just come with a bit more experience on the game. One thing this has done, TJ, this safety car, it's brought Adrian right back into contention. He had his spin, he had his drive-through, and somehow he's still P7.
Yeah, it's played into his favour. He gained a few positions because people boxed around him, so Revenge Zeros got behind him. Same as Scotsman and Magsy and Walker. He gained positions through that way, but yeah, he's well back into this race now, and with the pace he's showing, you know, you'd expect him to clear the likes of Fish Sticks, Panic End and Cruiser pretty quickly.
Yep, of course, those drivers ahead of him all on the same tyres out at the moment. The safety car's still out then. Going round for its third lap now. Came out on lap 5. We're on lap 7 here. Nearly at a third distance in the race. Yeah, TJ, I mean, the likes of Yorkie in P3 at the moment, do you think I need to pit again? Or do you think I'll set those hard tyres till the end?
I think the hard tyres will go to the end for me here. They are different in this game. They do run up longer, the tyre isn't as bad. Don't get me wrong, you've still got the phase where they don't feel great. But Yorkie with these laps behind the safety cars just scrubbing off that fresh shine on the tyres, building the temperature up so you won't suffer so much from that phase where they aren't really hooked up to the track. So yeah, I think he'd go to the end for me, and I think you'd only consider pitting if there was a really late safety car.
Well, this safety car will be in this lap. Of course, Ian becomes the de facto safety car then and will lead the field away, letting the safety car peel off and peel. Comes around the final corner, it's building back up quite nicely. Of course, I'm sure about the safety car restarts, but I imagine with the run to turn 1, he's going to try and take it as much to the line as he can. Arm off the final corner, not due to release the throttle, then will indeed then look to try and catch out Pines behind him on the straight, trying to wheel slightly to get the temperature up, and now he chooses to go then, and he has caught Pines napping slightly there. Panic End's got ahead of Cruiser. One thing I was going to say for Yorkie is that at least he's got that buffer of Cruiser behind him, but not anymore then. Down into turn 1, it is still Dean that is leading then, ahead of Pines in P2, Yorkie now P3. Fish Sticks, I think, has had a moment down to P10. Nedda 2 losing positions off the start. There's a yellow flag out, and I think it's for Spenio once again at turn 2.
Yeah, something happened to the spinning and locker on the safety car restart because he dropped miles back from the pack as he went. And we didn't quite see it as I couldn't get a good camera angle on it, but yeah, he's had a moment through turn 2 and from such a good quality, he's just having a nightmare in the base currently.
Well, here goes Pines and up the inside of Dean on the right hand, left-handed I should say, hairpin there, and they're still side by side coming through these corners. And I think Dean's just slightly pushed Pines wide. He does have to filter back in behind the Red Bull, and Pines is round then. Pines is round, losing it in the tracking zone on his own accord there. It was great racing by the pair of them, but it is Pines that has come off worse, and he's dropped right down into P12 then. And it's a shame because I thought we were going to get that fight last for a couple more laps, but unfortunately, yeah, Pines now out of the running, down in P13.
Yeah, as you were talking about Pines there, Revenge Zero's on a mad one here. He's absolutely launched himself up the grid, and a great battle of Panic End here currently. He's on the back of York now. York, it looks like he's trying to weave to get some temperature into them tyres actually.
Yeah, I was just about to mention that. I just spotted that ahead of Revengezilla and York, as I mentioned. I know you spoke about it behind the safety car. He was able to kind of, save those tyres and try and take them to the end, but the warm-up on the hards this game, I know that it's so much more difficult than previous games. It takes a full lap or two really to get those tyres to work, and Revengezilla then looking to make the most of that at the moment and close up to the back of the Alpine. He's within a second at the moment, of course. We have no DRS until after lap 2 of the safety car. Pines is around again midway through sector 1. He looks completely out of the running now then for the win or a podium, unless some miracle happens later on in this race for him.
Yeah, and
now. Oh, carry on.
Yeah, Pines just dropped it again. He isn't having fun on their medium tyres. I imagine the rears are a little bit hot now. It wouldn't surprise me if someone comes to the pits and retire at this point.
Yeah, 22 seconds then off Spinio at the back of the field, then barring any safety car, it'd be a miracle to get back into the point from here then. And Yorkie then looks like he has fired those hard tyres into life. He's caught up to Dean by about half a second on this lap. He's dropped Revengezilla as well. So the hard tyres, and now perhaps TJ has got them warmed up, are starting to come to the Alpine driver.
Yeah, as you rightly said, nice under the safety car, just trying to get temperature into these tyres is horrible for the first few laps, but as soon as they come into the zone, they're so good. You get so much grip out of them, but obviously not compared to the mediums and softs, but they do you well. And on this game particularly compared to the last game, they feel 10 times better than once you go into that zone.
One thing we didn't mention, of course, CJ, with that early safety car, of course, those drivers that start on the hard tyres that come into the pits then, the likes of, I think it was Revengezilla and others as well, they were going to take a pit stop, a free pit stop as it were at that point. They had to obviously put something on different than the hard tyres. You only get one set of the hard tyres and one set of the mediums as well, actually, for the race now, I believe. It was a 50% race. Changes. It isn't. But, yeah, that's obviously kind of forced those drivers that chose to take that pit stop into doing a two-stop today.
Yeah, this is where this pit strategy is going to come in slightly to it, and how drivers do approach it this game. And yeah, we'll have to wait to see how they play out. But the likes of, especially anyone on the mediums now, to be honest, is not going to go to the end as you mentioned. So we'll have to wait and see what does happen there. And as you were talking about the tyres, etc., Mags at the moment in sector 1 has dropped down to P13. Adrian drops in sector 2 again and points off down to P8 as he comes into the pits. I imagine to replace that front wing.
Yeah, we'll see now in the pit lane if Hammer will stop taking it off him. Does he indeed change that front wing? I think the pit crew do have one ready for him, then into the box, and indeed change the front wing onto the hard tyres then, so he's going to go long here, won't have to stop again before the end of the race, so he's not completely out of it at the moment, but here Magsy and Panic End all in for a new set of tyres, and Magsy in for a set of soft tyres as well, so looking to have a rapid couple of laps and perhaps come on to the mediums to the end of the race.
Yeah, I'm not sure why Magsy's done that. He needs a safety car now for definitely swinging back into this race. I would have put the hard on at this point. Perhaps there's been a mistake there potentially. Perhaps he had his strategy set for the 2-stop and just hasn't changed it. But that's a shame from the Alfa Romeo driver there. I think that's his race pretty much over about the safety car.
Indeed, and he's currently quite a way off the point as well, about 29 seconds or so at the moment behind Jeddah 10. There's quite a close fight going on at the moment for P7, 8 and 9. It's the two Ferrari drivers and a Spenio, as you can see here. Then a bit of a DRS train as it stands. Locker not too far, Fishdix and Cruiser either as well. Down into the final corner, there's a yellow flag out just ahead of these drivers. I think it's a Red Bull.
Yep,
That's
Tadas.
It is indeed without a front wing. It's Tadas.
Yeah, once again, we've seen a couple of drivers drop it there, and Ali just getting caught out with it. The traction, it's a learning curve for all these drivers, and it's interesting to see that, you know, like some drivers that hardly dropped it last season, they're struggling in places you wouldn't expect them to drop the car.
That puts Tadas right out of contention as well into the pits.
Something has happened between Scotsman and Spenio. Both drivers around. Not quite sure what happened. I just got on board as he was spinning. I think there's definitely contact between them. But once again, Spenio just can't catch a break in this race.
Yeah, we saw pretty close fighting between the 5 of them then from Fishdix down as we watch a move here by F.J. Locker on the outside of Cruiser. Gives up the move, a bit clever there by Locker. He knows at this part of the track you don't want to be on the outside there, and he's going to try and look to take advantage of that and cut back then on Cruiser, but it looks like he didn't quite get the traction down either compared to Cruiser. He will be within the DRS, so down into the final corner. Crucially, will Cruiser get the DRS from Fishdix? I don't think he will. Will this be enough for Locker to have a look then at the Haas down into the final corner? And he might just be a little bit too far back. Let's see, he's going to send it around the outside. There's plenty of room on the inside, and that's a brilliant overtake there by FKR Locker. But now, of course, Cruiser looking to come back at him with the ERS and the DRS. Great battling from these pair, and Cruiser does indeed get back past after that overtake from Locker. And this is the fighting we were seeing between 5 of them, unfortunately, until the Spenio and Scotsman dropped out of this battle. But really good driving from these two at the moment.
Yeah, it's very clever from Cruiser, that was. He's hardly used his ERS, so he's been saving it off. And he knew that once Locker got that overtake done on that final corner, he'd get the place back straight away purely because, obviously you won't know this, but you would have seen the flashing light of Locker's ERS, and he really got him done on DRS and DRS, so very clever driving from the Haas driver.
He has got Locker all over the back of him once again. Now this is by far the closest fight on the circuit at the moment, so thanks boys for giving us something to watch at this stage of the race. But yeah, Cruiser definitely does have the advantage of that fast ERS score he has, and 70% compared to Locker's 8. Cruiser said he would have seen the flashing light now. He knows that he has got that advantage. Cruiser running a little bit wide there. Oh, and very, very close to dropping it in the traction zone. And Locker is ahead before the DRS line, so can pull perhaps slightly ahead. But Cruiser choosing to use a bit of that battery then to keep up with the Ferrari, and even with the DRS. Locker hasn't managed to pull away there. And I wonder if Cruiser is going to have a look back at Locker down into turn 1. He's going to come from a bit further back this time around. But look at the speed gain there with that battery and with the DRS. But he chooses to stay behind him.
Yeah, once again, I think it's clever. He knows that Locker's got no DRS. He keeps seeing the light flashing, and perhaps he's going to try to slip him through some of the longer DRS straights to try and get the overtake done there, put some distance between him and the Ferrari driver. Although Cruiser is dropping off quite dramatically here.
Yeah. damage, anything of the sort. So he's just choosing to look after the tyres, or whether the tyres are getting away from slightly now. Locker does have 4-lap fresher tyres over himself. That is coming into play here. While all that was going on, Dean chose to pit from the lead then and rejoined in 6th place, just a couple of seconds back from Cruiser, who we're riding with at the moment. But Locker's now got his sights set on Fish Sticks at the moment, who rides in P3. Fish Sticks 13 lap old mediums at the moment. Locker with 9 lap old hards, looking like he has the advantage. Both drivers with similar ERS as well. I think there's a Red Bull round again. TJ's at Tadas by any chance?
Yeah.
Sector 1.
Yeah, that's Tadas. I think Adrian's at the moment again as well. Yeah, Adrian's at the moment as well. Yeah, both drivers are really struggling on this track currently. One thing I will
Here we go then with Locker. Sorry, TJ, round the outside. He might not have any battery, but he has got the move done with DRS. He chose to stick behind him through the final corner. It looked like he was going to launch at the inside, but very, very close racing between the pair of them, and Locker now ahead into P3.
Yeah, fantastic from the Ferrari driver. He's got some real pace in them hard tyres currently. Fish Sticks is probably getting struggling on 14 lap old mediums and probably looking to come in within the next couple of laps and probably put a set of softs onto the end.
11 laps to go here of the Tier 3 Saudi Arabian social race then. And we are currently watching Dean looking to get back through the field. Cruiser not making his job too difficult, and he's back up to P5. 17.5 seconds off the lead then with 11 laps to go. Can he get that gap down to Yorkie, who's out in front and not looking to stop again if he can get away with it? But of course those tyres have already done 10 laps as it stands, so they will be, if they go to the race, pretty done by how we get there.
Yeah, definitely. Yorkie, I imagine Yorkie will be only pit if there's like safety car, or unless he gets warning that there could be a tyre puncher maybe. Revenge Zilvan in P2 as well, fantastic recovery drive from the T2 driver. We know he's going to have to pit again. I can't see their mediums to the end. Perhaps he's looking to go perhaps another 3-4 laps and put a set of softs onto the end maybe. As we've got Adrian back around again. Yeah. And
Dean looking to make light work of Fish Sticks, but the yellow flag stopping any move there, and it is another virtual safety car then, the third of the race. And Cruiser looking to make the most of the virtual safety car by coming into the pits then.
Yeah, that's been time perfect for him. He obviously gained time over other drivers by hitting on the VSC, so he'll have time to come back out, get some temperature into them tyres and get going again. As Scotsman's lost a bit of time in pit lane to Spinio, but he's changed his tyres onto his old mediums. He based on that, beginning the race with 4 laps on, so Gale seems to the end. Adrian's got a nightmare again, going to 5-second time penalty and new tyres.
Well, it hasn't quite been the race our pole sitter would have wanted. He does indeed retire from the race. I think he was hoping that this was going to be a full safety car. A few drive-through penalties there flashing up at the top of the screen then. So perhaps TJ, I don't know if you mentioned earlier about a glitch as we're watching Dean all over the back of Fish Sticks and touching the rear of the Alpha Tauri. Then of course the DRS is still active, but Fish Sticks will get it from Locker, but that is no problem from Dean, who gets the move done before the braking zone then, and now will set off after Locker in P3. Bit of sinking issues there, but yeah, you mentioned TJ about a glitch with this safety car, but I just think maybe they just weren't looking at the Delta, maybe? I don't know, but it's strange how a couple of drivers are having the issue, but not many others.
Yeah, like I said, I'll get Locker back in the game. He's last session, but yeah, I've heard it could be a glitch. Like I said, I don't know how true it is. But the fact that both drivers picked a penalty would suggest that maybe they weren't paying attention.
Yeah, there's Fish Sticks into the pits now for a set of soft tyres and looking to get those till the end of the race with 9 laps to go. That's a bit of a tall order. If we believe they'll only last at best a handful of laps, 5 or 6 we're expecting then. But yeah, Fish Sticks back out in P8 at the moment then. Dean still 15.8 seconds in off the lead at the moment then, with, as I mentioned, 9 laps to go then. Doesn't look like he'll get that gap down unless Yorkie's tyres do fall off a cliff then. Another driver that we expected to come into the pits, Revengezilla, P2 at the moment on the medium tyres, only just under 4 seconds back off Yorkie, but we think still has to come into the pits before the end of the race then. And hopefully Locker can get back into the car pretty soon, because he was having a good race up until that point.
Yeah, I've got a feeling that so Locker was playing on the trial from the A play, and I wonder if he's mistimed it and he can no longer play F122. I've got him to invite, so let's see what he does. There's no messages, but yeah, I know he was playing on the trail and he was pretty close to finishing it. So we'll wait and see if he does get back in. But yeah, it's a shame for Ferrari driver. He was on a fantastic race up to that point.
Yep, hopefully he can get back into the second one, of course. Next tier 3 driver down the road is Jeddah in P5. 16 lap odd tyres, he put them on lap 2. And perhaps come in for a set of soft tyres before the end of the race. They can't be feeling too handy at the moment, but the fight out in front is very stagnant at the moment. Zilla can't quite get the gap down to Yorkie out in front. Gaps remained at about the 4 second mark. Dean is still trying to chase them down, but you can see the gap there at 15.2. He's not making the inroads he needs to, despite him having the fresh tyres on, which just shows in how much the hard tyre can hold up. With 8 laps to go, it is looking all but Yorkie's to lose at this point.
Yeah, definitely. He has pulled a blinder and that safety car helped him out. I've got some news on Locker, and he might have overheated Xbox. He says his screen froze and then the Xbox just shut off.
Not too sure. I don't know what to say about that. What a shame, also. What a shame for him. He's still running in P4 at the moment, or his AI is anyway. He's losing a lot of time to Jeddah behind him, but, you know, he might finish in P5 or 4, maybe, depending if Jeddah has to come into the pit, so even if his car will bring him in anyway. But anyway, that's enough of him for now then. Yorkie's now making gains against Zilla actually, and wonder if those medium tyres are dropping off out in front. Up to 4.5 seconds now. Dean's still unable to make the gains he needs to challenge the win by the end of this race then. And the field is quite spread out at the moment. The closest fight really on track is Fishsticks going after Cruiser for 7. Time to review the penalties actually. We've not seen too many this evening. A couple of 6 seconds, a handful of 3 seconds as well, as you can see on screen at the moment. Jeddah and Scotsman, the two drivers with those 6 second time penalties. The field is spread out at the moment, so depending on if we get a safety car, it might not affect those drivers too much, of course. 6 laps to go here before the end of the race. And TJ, we're at that point now. I think if Revengezilla coming to the pits now, come back out, probably just behind Locker's AI car and 4.
Yeah.
Is there any point in doing that now, or do you think you'll just try and see these through to the end? Dean is about 9.3 back. We know he is making at least gains against Revengezilla as it stands, but with just under 6 laps left to go to the end of the race. Do you think you'll just try and stick it out there? It'll be a great effort if you can get those mediums till the end, considering how early you put them on. But is there much point in coming into the pits now?
No, I don't think there is. But I don't think it's worth risking losing all the hard work he's done. But yeah, as you say, fair play if he gets his mediums to the end, because they're surely screaming in pain to him right now.
Fishsticks unable to make the inroads against Cruiser that you might have expected. Those soft tyres not holding up very well against the mediums. I mean, We know how good the medium is as a race tyre. The hards seem even better as a race tyre, really, which I think I've never found before, really, in an F1 game. But everyone making the hard tyres work rather well. Soft tyres just seem to degrade so quickly. I mean, Fishsticks has the tyre advantage, and he's unable to close on Cruiser here. And this is really good information. As we spoke about at the start of the stream, TJ, it's really good information, of course. But for those watching and those racing, you know, when we go into the league races and stuff like that, that's what pre-season's for, to get that knowledge. And yeah, Fishsticks unable to make the soft tyres work. We know they burn up very quickly, so now surely, you know, people will do all they can really to avoid those tyres when we come to the actual league racing.
Yeah, definitely. As you mentioned, that the soft tyre just seems to be a quality tyre now, or a very quick short burst tyre, maybe as you know, it's a safety car. And yeah, as you say, that the tyre to beat is the hard tyres. They seem so much more racy this season once you get them into that zone.
Yeah, and we have got 5 laps left to go, so expect those tyres to drop off even more. There's a car round. It is.
It's Revenge Zilla.
Revenge Zilla then. Yeah. With no front wing as well.
Oh.
So with just under 5 laps to go, the driver in second place, who we thought had wringed every bit of life out of them tyres, has now picked up front wing damage. He's been round. There's some kind of safety car out. I don't know if it's a virtual safety car again, so it's the 4th virtual safety car. No wonder he's bolting to try and get into the pits, because he knows that if he pits into a virtual safety car, he'll lose much less time in doing so. What a huge disappointment for Revenge. The virtual safety car has ended just before he gets to the pits as well. Oh dear, it's not gone very well for him. We did think it was a bit much trying to get those tyres till the end, and he is into the pits. And for those repairs, I mean, personally I wouldn't have even bothered with the gap he's got to P3 at the moment, but he does indeed come into the pits then, and Dean takes over P2, very much helped by that accident there for Revenge. So we're onto the soft tyres, and with 3 or 4 laps to go, he can have a go for fastest lap and try and save some face before the end of the race. But he'll be disappointed with that, TJ. Surely he must have been expecting to be on the second step of the podium if he would have got the tyres all the way.
Yeah, definitely. I think once again it's great data from Benzilla there that, you know, he banked on it, and we said this medium tyres were probably dying on him at that point. And yeah, I think he just gave up on going around that corner, and perhaps he got a bit, once again, a bit too happy on the trigger maybe to put a bit of power down. And so yeah, once again, it's just great data for the drivers to pick up and know where the boundaries are for tyres, really. Yeah.
And eventually then come back out onto the track for 8 seconds behind Locker's AI car at the moment, running around in P3. So I don't think it really means anything in a social race, but we could choose to disqualify Locker's car from the race. It technically would be on the podium. Is Locker back in that car? It looks like he might be.
Yeah, he's back in the car. Yeah,
he's back in the car then. So before the end of the race.
Revenge. He's put some new tyres on, found himself a bit of grip, trying to push and reach track limits.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like him, to be fair. He would do. Still set for P4 at the moment, though, so he is still on for a good result. Fishsticks still can't get within that second of Cruiser at the moment, who's running around in P6, but perhaps might not need to with the penalties. Cruiser will pick up, of course, another refresher of the penalties at the moment then, after that 3 seconds for Revenge Zilla, and it is still 3 seconds for the majority of the field, apart from Nedder and Scotsman running at the tail end of proceedings at the moment then. And it looks like Yorkie is on for a very, very easy win here, TJ. 12.5 seconds still the gap between him and Dean, who's only managed to close it up about 3 seconds over the past 8 laps or so. And it has been a performance in the race I think we expected. He did have some qualifying pace about him, but in the race, TJ, making the use of those safety cars, it just has been a different class, hasn't he, eventually towards the end?
Yeah, he has. You know, we mentioned right at the beginning that that you've got to, if you want to try challenge for the top step, you've got to throw a different strategy in there. And he was the only one that did it really. And okay, he got lucky with maybe the safety car, but he made it work. And yeah, look where he is. He's 12 seconds ahead of Dean, who was flying in qualifying.
Yeah. That, of course, as I mentioned, helped by that decision to pit under the safety car for those hard tyres, but take nothing away from that performance. And onto the penultimate lap we are now, and yeah, I mean, we haven't seen too much fighting, as Zilla does get that fastest lap, which obviously he was aiming for with that set of soft tyres. We haven't seen too much racing, we've seen a bit of fighting between the cars. But I mean, in terms of fighting on the track, TJ, I mean, the cars, at least in real life, were designed to run a bit closer to one another. Do you think we've seen evidence of that today, and or do you personally think that's kind of transitioned into the game as well?
Yeah, I think we have seen something in this game, well, in this particular race. You saw the five gentlemen that were battling early on in the race, and they were all over the back of each other for at least a lap or two. And even so, when that one's happening, we have seen little pockets of battles over the place where drivers have been able to run within that half a second gap and not really lose any time in any issue like downforce issues through the corners or anything. So I think we have seen it transition through to the game, and hopefully on a better track than Jeddah. I know people don't like Jeddah too much, but on closer tracks, we can see battles happening throughout the entire race.
Fingers crossed, of
As
course.
Revenge Hilla's just been there.
And Revenge Hilla in pushing then, yeah, as he lost, I think he's lost it in the same corner he did in qualifying, and
Yeah.
as a handful of other drivers have done during this race. And P4 then goes begging, and he will finish then outside the points now, of course, and finish in the wall. Slightly disappointing from him, but I think after that spin early on, he was kind of gunning to try and get back onto the podium, but didn't quite happen for him. On to the final lap now, of course, and Fishing has finally got within a second here of Cruiser, as those soft tyres have got into the race. They've actually given him a little bit of pace here at this stage against the Haas driver, but he has lost one overtaking opportunity on this final lap. It'll be interesting to see if he can take advantage of another, but coming in then to the final half of the lap now, LWS Yorkie, as we mentioned, has drove a pretty consistent race, hasn't picked up a penalty, made the most of the safety cars, wasn't quite the fastest in qualifying today, but showed fantastic race pace, and we'll take some confidence from this. We know he's a tier 2 driver for next season, but take nothing away from him this race, and he has drove a stellar race where others have struggled. He rounds the final corner now. He won't quite pick up the fastest lap, but I don't think he expects to either, as he comes up and across the line. It is LWS Yorkie then who wins the social race here around Jeddah. It's Dean who's going to pick up P2. Disappointing for him. I think he would have expected to be on the top step maybe on his quest to get back into tier 1, and it looks like FPRL Locker then is going to finish the highest of our tier 3 drivers this evening. Decent race pace. He put those tyres on, TJ, on lap 5, and he's got them right till the end as well, joining Yorkie in doing so and picking up a podium then for Ferrari. And it will be Panic End to come across the line in P4. The fight between Fish Sticks and Cruiser hasn't quite finished just yet, but it looks like Cruiser is going to get the best of Fish Sticks and crosses the line in P5.
Yeah, fantastic from Fish Sticks. He kept it close to Cruiser there. Unfortunately, got moved on track, so he does it with penalties. But either way, it's been a fantastic race where we have seen the battles. It's been great to see drivers back out on track with these new cars, learning how they handle, learning what they should do and shouldn't do. Picking that vital data up as you keep mentioning of how the cars feel and tyres do. So it's been a good run out for the guys, for definite.
Definitely, and some drivers will take confidence then. And yeah, good performances from some of those in the field today.
Yeah, once again we've seen from Yorkie and from Locker that the hard tyre does seem to be the race tyre to be on. We've gone 20 laps, so it's going to be an interesting season. I think this season is for definitely.
I am here. I am back. Nice bit of controller issues there, but there we have it then. Your podium, and the champagne is flowing in a social race. Why not celebrate, I guess, at the end of the day. You know, this might be Yorkie's only ever win in FPRL, so you may as well celebrate it while you can. But there's your classification, and for the end of the race, when we finally get to it, heavy loading screen there, but there you have it then. Quite a hint for drivers. It's obviously not easy to tracks to avoid those, but well done to the 3 drivers that managed to avoid penalties all the way through. It is Yorkie, Dean and Locker then on the podium. Great race by Locker to get onto the podium. Great recovery from Fistrix. P13 to P4 for him, and no penalties in the process as well. Cruiser P5, Panic End P6, Maxi, Spenio, Neda, Tadas rounding off the points then. Scotsman unfortunately just missing out on the point. Had a great start to the race until his incident, but will not get any points in the social race. Revenger, that we saw have the accident late on, and he finished P12 in the end. He looked set for P2 from 17th on the grid, but unfortunately could not hold his nerve till the end. Adrian Pines, Mungo Days, and David Lolface, that we saw have the incident at turn 1. Unfortunately, not making it very far through the race. And there we have it then, TJ. That is the end of our first tiered social race. We don't usually officially do this for obviously social races, of course, but it's obviously good to get your opinion on who you think really was the driver of the day. We usually do co-commentators driver of the day, so we might as well do it for the social race. Who are you going to give the accolade to this time around?
I mean, there's a few drivers that deserve it. Dino won a fantastic race. York had a fantastic race. But personally, I would have given it to Revenge Zilla if he had finished the race. Starting at the back and getting up to the P3 position is no small feat in itself. I don't know. I think it's a tough one tonight, actually. But I think Locker, he didn't. Even though he logged out the game and he had a few issues even there, to finish P3 with the tier 2 guys that are in there is a fantastic feat. So yeah, I'd probably give it Locker, but that's taking nothing away from like Dean Yorkie. And like I said, I wouldn't give it to Zilla if he had finished the race.
Yeah, couldn't agree with you more there. Great drive from Locker in Tier 3, and you will take some confidence from that going into the season then. But of course, that isn't the last social race we've got this week. As I mentioned at the start of the stream, we have got a race tomorrow for the Tier 1 drivers to try and prove their worth around Austria. And on Friday, I believe it is, whose opportunity to prove their worth around Silverstone then. A few different tracks this week to try and spice things up as we get into some more social races. As I mentioned, we've got some social races next week as well. We've got a sprint format Wednesday, Thursday and Friday to give that a test as we look to try and incorporate that into the full calendar of Season 4. And then, of course, the week after that, 2 weeks' time today, we will be sat here, TJ, hopefully discussing the first Tier 3 race season in Season 4. But that is all we've got time for tonight. And thank you for joining me once again, TJ. It's been an absolute pleasure to be joined by your company.
Yep, same. It's always a pleasure to join on Wednesday night, and I look forward to really kicking the season off in 2 weeks' time. And as you say, discussing what went well and what went wrong for the top 3 drivers.
Yep, most definitely. If anything was to go off, I'm sure we are in for a fantastic season. Thank you for watching, and as I mentioned, please join us tomorrow at the same time, 8 o'clock. To watch the Tier 1 boys give us a tour of Austria on this new game then. So until next time, we'll see you then.